The First Amendment in our Constitution, the amendment to our Constitution, has two particular sections: an establishment clause and an exercise clause, meaning that the state shall not establish a religion or preference to a particular faith or faith tradition, and it also provides for the free exercise of one's faith. Where those who established the Constitution, many of them fleeing from religious persecution, never wanted the government to establish religion in the United States or a preference to a particular faith tradition. There was the belief you live your faith, you do not legislate your faith. You live it, you do not legislate, because there are a variety of people who live within this fragile and yet to be, quote unquote, democracy. There are Jews, there are Muslims, there are Christians, there are Hindus, there are Buddhists, there are Sikhs, and many more. But within each category, there are a variety of perspectives in each category. Methodists view the world a little bit differently than Pentecostals, and Pentecostals view things a little bit differently than Catholics. The reason that I bring this up, and let me ask a question. There is a church, actually a minister that I know, and they particularly believe that women should not serve in any form of leadership. Now, should that church, should they legislate their beliefs so that everyone in the United States believes the same thing that they believe? No. They are free to exercise their particular doctrine and belief. Church B believes that completely differently, that people should have free to have leadership in a variety of ways. I bring this up because I was on a podcast the other day, the Good Faith Media podcast, and they raised the question talking about that there are some churches and some ministers that are really challenged in this season around what has been going on, known as the pro-life and the pro-choice debate. And I start talking about the importance of the idea of separation of church and state. And then I start talking about this idea that as black people, the 14th Amendment and the 13th and the 15th Amendment were all set up to ensure that we would have what is known as body autonomy. What does that mean? It means that at one time, black folk did not have control of their bodies. We were considered to be enslaved and we were property. The 13th Amendment then gave us citizenship, meaning that we would have rights and privileges in this country. And one of them specifically was the right to liberty, the right to due process, the right to autonomy, or what is known as free will. The question becomes over and over again, should a particular branch of a faith legislate their perspective? Should the government be able to interfere with one's liberty? We should be able to live out our faith, but should we legislate it? Since so many people have different perspectives in reference to this idea. You can hold these two things together. You truly can. And have the belief that the government does not involve, but yet I can live out my faith perspective. These are the challenges that we are faced with every day. And know this, that the Supreme Court did not rule in reference to anything dealing with abortion. The Supreme Court ruled on what is known as states' rights. to pass things to the state. This is important for black people because the ruling that the Supreme Court gave around states' rights, specifically the 14th Amendment, in their ruling, this current Supreme Court, states' rights, the state has the right to be able to determine whether the government can intervene in reference to reproductive rights, has different implications for black people because states' rights were used to remove our voting rights. That if a state has the right or the government has the right to have some autonomy over a person, the next case then is, does the state have the right to prevent you from voting? Does the state have the right to say that, oh, you should have one polling place in Chicago, but there should be 300 in Naperville? Does the state have that right? It has been the tradition since the civil rights movement, that states' rights cannot interfere with an individual right. So all of the talk that you're hearing, what Project 2025 really wants to do is to get people to give up the idea that we all have liberty so that we can go back to states' rights. With states' rights, I can remove your voting rights. And the reason we have an electoral college is specifically so that white Southerner plantation owners could have equal representation with northern states. So they came up with a system known as the Electoral College so that they would have equal weight. Now we're in a moment in American history where the popular vote may not follow the Electoral College. So a minority can now override the majority. Know the language, do some of the reading from the Federalist Papers to reading our Constitution, and you will find out that most of the language that's being used is a smokescreen to take us back. But I want to let you know, we're not going back. In the words of Sean Connery from The Untouchables, there endeth the lesson. May God bless you and may God keep you.